Hey there, it's Meg with Seed to Fork and the author of Plant, Grow, Harvest, Repeat. I'm also the founder of the Modern Garden Guild, and welcome to my September garden tour. It has been a beautiful month. August was a little rainier than July, which was fantastic. We got like 5 times the amount of rain, which means 5 inches. We're still way below what we should be, but I'm doing as good of a push as I can for my fall garden. It's been kind of a hectic summer. Gardening at this scale has turned out to be not a linear relationship. It feels like it is a lot more work than the smaller garden was, and we are planting larger proportions of things to put food by. So while a bit of the garden is still in what I would consider kind of pantry staples and shelf-stable crops, there is a lot of the garden that requires quite a bit of attention, as well as the succession planting of direct seeding crops for our root cellar. So I continue to be working kind of lots of layers at once right now. But I'm excited to share the garden with you and show you how our staple crops are doing, what's curing. It is September 3rd, by the way. It's Labor Day weekend here, and we just broke some heat overnight, and it's absolutely glorious. And we are going to be doing a pretty big compost heap this weekend. We like to run as much as we can through a wood chipper when we harvest and start building our piles. So that is another really important thing that we will be doing. I am distracted by birds in my elderberry shrubs. I've got tons of ripe elderberry. I need to start harvesting them. I knew the birds would be coming. When I see the birds, I know that means that they are ripe. So I just need enough to make some elderberry syrup for us. The birds can have the rest. There is more than enough to share over there. So anyhow, I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to give you some tours of some of my favorite views and angles. I'll show you how we are putting food by and where we're at in the curing process, and show you a little bit of where the root cellar's at. It's kind of, we've been using it as a multi-purpose space this season. And yeah, I'll see what else we end up chatting about. So hope you enjoyed the tour, and thanks for watching. So my favorite kind of patio anchor is this planting. The kale is leaning over at this point, a little top heavy. I actually consider my kale to be an ornamental until later in fall. We haven't harvested off of it. I bet we're pretty close here to start making some massaged kale salads, but we haven't gotten there yet. This is a planting, my second succession of beans that has not gotten pulled out yet. It should, and I'm also seeing that it's putting out some new beans here. I haven't harvested off of this actually in over a week, and at this point none of these would be harvestable, but I could save this for seed. Those are Gold Rush, which is an open pollinated bean variety. We've got several successions of carrots here. That is my summer succession I'm pulling off of right now. The rest of these, including one more planting over there, are all for the root cellar. This is my massive dry corn, flower corn. It is probably 12 to 14 feet tall. I'm very excited that it's producing ears, and it will be used for making tortillas. I always plant my soybeans late to offset the Japanese beetle pressure. There are some lingering Japanese beetles I see right there that haven't bit the dust yet. But when I used to plant them in kind of late May, they would be decimated. So that's been kind of a sort of a climate change and kind of a way to stagger successions to mitigate pest pressure. This is some of my fall planting. I've got broccoli and Napa cabbage in here. I have not been very good with keeping up with the cabbage whites, which have been pretty bad this year. My fall brassica garden is not what I'd like it to be. But on the plus side, I actually harvested 3 side shoots off of this yesterday, and there are 2 more coming in, and we've harvested already off of this several times. So, and we only eat it fresh. Potatoes. I've got 3 plantings of potatoes. We have started harvesting just a little bit to eat fresh like we always do. The majority of those are headed for the root cellar. Determinate tomatoes are in various stages. I've probably harvested, 200 to 300 pounds already. And I've canned 36 or 37 quarts so far. It's about half of what my goal was. I just harvested another 50 pounds yesterday in a really big harvest. Tons of Septoria leaf spot. These were on my paisanos. And I actually only grew them because I had the seed. I won't grow them again next year. I've got Italian Romas, which is a open pollinated heirloom determinate, a lot more disease resistant, as well as the ones back here are Plum Regal. Peppers, you guys. We've got a ton of ripe peppers. A lot of the peppers that we grow, with the exception of, we've got quite a few bells in various stages of ripeness. I harvested 3 beautiful bell peppers this week already. Gourmet, an orange pepper, and a Sprinter red pepper. This red pepper is pretty close. It's got just a little bit left, another day or so here, and that'll be our 3rd Sprinter that we've harvested this year. I love growing culinary peppers, so I've got tons of paprika pepper in here. We've got gochu peppers and aji amarillos. All of those we dry and grind. So one of my favorite things is to have peppers in the garden that we can use year-round in the kitchen. I grew tomatillos again this year. I have canned just 1 round of roasted salsa verde. I plan on canning another batch today, so that's kind of exciting. If those are the kinds of details you want to hear from me, things like canning and recipes, a great thing to do would be to join my Modern Garden Guild, because that is where I go into all of the details about my recipes and how I put all this food to good use in the kitchen. Okay, so now on the west side of the garden, we've got more potatoes. Some of them were pretty badly diseased, so I'm not really sure how they're going to be in terms of productivity, but we'll see. I'm about to pull all of that out today. So those are my pickling cucumbers. I think we've canned about a dozen quart jars of dill pickles. The cosmos are likely going to come out too, so that will be space that will open up probably for maybe some fall spinach. So I'll plant that bed nice and thick, and that will be one of our early beds of spinach next year. And I'm also going to pull that corn is ready to go as well, and there's cosmos tucked in with there. So those 2 beds will help us build our compost piles. We've got a compost pile built right now, but we're always looking for more greens and browns. So the other thing that we'll probably pull is so those lettuces have gone to seed. We've got more lettuce in here that has gone to seed. This is a bit of my fall brassica bed. It actually is a pretty big disappointment for me this year. My red cabbage didn't make it, so I'm going to have no red cabbage for my root cellar. Such is life. However, we have some trade-offs this year in terms of the garden productivity. I planted probably about 50% more square footage in dry beans. So those are Tiger's Eye. Those are my Borlotti cranberry beans, as well as this whole area here. And this whole bean tunnel last year produced about 14 pounds of beans for us, which lasted us, if you cook about a pound a week for 1 night of beans and rice. So it lasted us several months. So I'm hoping with these extra plantings, we will have beans to get us through the winter, eating as often as possible, as often as we want. That's the goal. One thing that's been pretty surprising is just how well our melons have done this year. This is a local seed that I got. I think it's called a musketeer melon. I've already harvested 1 round of Helona, cantaloupe, and then we've got a Chanteray that I'm having a very hard time knowing when that one's ripe. But these are going to be our next cantaloupe. There's probably about 6 or 7 of them in here, so I'm super excited to enjoy those, hopefully in another week or so. What I love about growing a lot of different kinds of fruit, and that includes not only our perennials but annuals, is that we're able to layer successions. So these fruits are coming in kind of between some of our apple varieties. So we've already had our Williams Pride apples, which were delicious. Our Harrelsons are just about to come into season. Our plums all split from the rain that we got early in August, which was a total bummer because we did have some plums this year, but we didn't get any. We got 1. So then annual fruit can kind of mind those gaps with fruit to really round out what your home garden produces. most of the ends, or at least as many ends of our garden beds as I am able to, I always plant them with flowers, and this turned out to be just such a beautiful planting. So this is called Ladybird Nasturtium, and it's flowering again with just a great amount of vigor. I will definitely be saving seeds from this to plant this again next year. I have never grown a pink nasturtium before, and I just absolutely love it, and it looks just so beautiful against some of these coral Benaries, and I think, not sure what color that is to be honest, but Benaries Giant Series, which I always buy as individual colors. Surprisingly, my tomatoes are still standing. I stopped pruning them some time ago, as you can see, and they are a bit wild at this point. But what's really interesting, and it doesn't usually happen partly because we end up having so much disease by now, I'm usually just about ready to pull my tomatoes at this point in the season most years because of disease. But because we don't have a lot of disease, we've had another flush of fruit come out on many of the varieties, including my most favorite variety, which is a Paul Robeson. We've got many fruit clusters on this. They're not as big as the original ones, but I sure am hoping that I will get ripe fruit in September out of this wonderful. It was actually my earliest producing slicing heirloom, and it could be my latest producing as well. So that's pretty exciting. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be cutting this down and replacing this with some fall seeds. But we have more corn. I planted my third succession of corn over there, and it's looking pretty awesome. So speaking of succession planting, this is where I succession planted from our garlic. This bed had garlic in it. Look at how beautiful, by the way, this sweet alyssum looks. So I succession planted my fall peas. These are my shelling peas, and they are starting to flower. My snap peas are starting to flower as well up by the north patio there. But this is great. I am back to loving fall peas. I think when it didn't work for me, I didn't have the timing right. So if peas are something you'd like to grow more than once in the season, really play with your fall timing, and when in doubt, sow them a little earlier than you might think of doing. All right, so here in the garage is some of our storage crops. I'll also use this for laying out our dry beans in the fall, and I even use it as a table in here when it comes time to packing up like our root crops for the root cellar. So in another corner here of the garage is where I dry our peppers. I've got some gochus in here right now, as well as some of my unsmoked paprikas. All right, and then the third place where we are in various states of storage. This is our root cellar, our damp root cellar. It's not damp right now. There's no real humidity in it. But so we've got all of our garlic that needs to be dealt with. I haven't dealt with it at all. It's all just sitting up here. I need to high grade it. I need to trim the tops off and get it stored away and get the seed garlic separated. This is the harvest that I had mentioned from yesterday. This is what 50 pounds of paste tomatoes looks like. And I've got some more there and some more here that are still ripening from last week's harvest. So this will be work for maybe middle of next week. I will oven roast these and can these. All right, so yesterday I did a huge harvest. It actually was over a couple of days, and I want to share that with you. I harvested 50 pounds of tomatoes. I think I mentioned that already, from the Determinate tomatoes for canning and processing. I harvested a whole bunch of peppers, bells, hots, just a really beautiful array of that. Our watermelons are in season, melons are in season. Always pulling off of our carrots and beets and onions. Still harvesting some summer lettuce and bok choy, and tomatillos are in season. I've been roasting those for salsa verde. And I'm sure there's other things I'm forgetting, but it was just an absolutely beautiful cornucopia of what a late August, early September garden can produce when you succession plant. Thanks so much for watching, and of course you can always find more information at my website, seed2fork.com, where you can get information about my book and joining my Modern Garden Guild. Thanks so much. See you in October.